but also potentially the most valuable allies. We should seek their friendship, not their enmity. The council agreed. Formal diploma. 50 years had passed since the war ended. 50 years since Velcros burned. 50 years since humanity sent its message to the galaxy. The generation that fought the war was mostly gone now. Minji had died quietly in her sleep 10 years ago. Hyun had passed 5 years before that. Dr. Sarah had lived longer, working until the end on peaceful energy projects, trying to balance the scales of what she had built, but their legacy remained. At the University of New Earth, Professor Hana taught a class on galactic history. Today's lesson was about the Velkarn War. The classroom was mixed. Human students sat next to Velkarn students, next to Thalak students, next to representatives from a dozen other species, all learning together. Hana pulled up images on the display. New Busan station before the attack. Happy people, families, children, then the attack. Fire and death. This is where it started, she told the class. An unprovoked attack on a civilian station. 50,000 people died in minutes. She showed more images. The torture videos. The prison camps. The faces of prisoners who had suffered. The Velkarn thought they could subjugate humanity through fear and violence. They were wrong. A Velkarn student raised his hand. Professor, my grandfather fought in that war. He said the Velkarn believed humans were weak, that you talked too much and fought too little. Your grandfather was right. That's what the Velkarn leadership believed. They mistook diplomacy for weakness. They didn't understand that humans chose peace not because they couldn't fight, but because they preferred not to. She showed footage of human warships, the battle at Kilos Prime, the destruction of Velkarn fleets. When humans did fight, they were devastating. They had prepared, studied, built weapons specifically designed to counter Velkarn tactics. The Velkarn never had a chance. Then came the hardest part, the images of Velcros, the artificial sun, the rising temperatures, the death of a planet. The classroom fell silent. Some students looked away. Others watched with horrified fascination. Everyone knew this part of history, but seeing it was different. 3 billion Velkarn died when Project Daybreak was activated. Most were civilians. The human government had offered surrender terms. The Velkarn leadership refused. Pride over survival. A human student spoke up. Was it right? To destroy a whole planet? Hana was quiet for a moment. That's the question historians still debate. Was it justice or genocide? Was it necessary or excessive? The answer depends on who you ask. She pulled up a quote from Admiral Minji Kang. I don't know if we did the right thing. I know we did the necessary thing. Minji Kang carried the weight of those 3 billion deaths until she died. She never said she was proud of what she did, but she never said she regretted it either. She believed it was necessary to protect humanity and send a message to the galaxy. The Velkarn student raised his hand again. My people deserved it. We started an unjust war. We tortured prisoners. We refused peace. The consequences were ours to bear. Hana nodded. That's the view many Velkarn hold now, but not all. Some still harbor resentment. Some believe the punishment was too severe. That's natural. 3 billion deaths is not something easily forgotten or forgiven. She changed the display to show modern human-Velkarn relations, trade agreements, joint projects, cultural exchanges. But look at where we are now. 50 years later, our species work together, trade together, learn together. You students sit in this classroom as equals. That wouldn't have been possible without the hard lessons learned from the war. After class, several students stayed to talk with Hana. They had questions about the war, about their future, about whether such a conflict could happen again. Could humanity do it again? A Thylax student asked. Destroy a planet? Yes, Hana said honestly. The capability exists. The will exists if pushed far enough. That's why diplomacy is so important. That's why we work so hard to resolve conflicts peacefully, because everyone saw what happens when peace fails. Does that mean humanity rules through fear? No, humanity rules through respect. There's a difference. Fear makes enemies. Respect makes partners. The galaxy respects humanity's strength, but also values humanity's fairness. That's the balance. A young Velkarn student approached her after the others left. Professor, I wanted to ask, do humans still hate us? For what our ancestors did? Hana looked at the young woman. She couldn't have been more than 20. Born decades after the war ended. Some do, just like some Velkarns still resent what happened to your homeworld. But most humans don't judge you for your ancestors' mistakes. You're not responsible for what they did. You're only responsible for what you do now. That's a relief. I worry sometimes. When I meet humans, I wonder if they see me or if they see the enemy. I see a student, a person, someone who wants to learn and grow. That's all that matters. The student smiled and left. Hana watched her go, thinking about how far both species had come. In a quiet cafe near the university, two elderly people sat drinking coffee. A human man and a Velkarn woman. Both were in their 70s. Both had lived through the war. Do you remember when we first met? The human asked. 20 years ago. At the peace conference. You were a human diplomat. I was representing the Velkarn survivors. I remember being angry, seeing you and thinking about everything your people had done. I remember being terrified, afraid you would demand more punishment, more retribution. They both sipped their coffee in silence for a moment. Strange how things change, the human said. Now we're friends. We have coffee together every week. I don't think about the war when I see you anymore. I still think about it, the Velkarn said quietly. I lost my entire family on Velcros. My parents, my siblings, my friends. All of them died when the artificial sun activated. I'm sorry. I lost people too. At New Busan, but I know it's not the same. Your entire world was destroyed. Both losses matter. Pain is pain. Grief is grief. We both lost people we loved. That's what we have in common, the human nodded. My grandchildren ask me about the war sometimes. They can't understand how it got so bad, how we went from diplomacy to genocide in just a few years. What do you tell them? I tell them the truth. That war is terrible, that both sides made mistakes, that the cost was enormous, and that we must never let it happen again. I tell my grandchildren the same thing. I tell them our leaders were arrogant, that we paid a terrible price for that arrogance, that they must be better than we were. They finished their coffee and said goodbye. Same time next week, as always. Two survivors of history's darkest moment, finding peace in the simple act of being friends. Across the galaxy, humanity had become a major power, not through conquest, not through intimidation, but through strength balanced with fairness. When disputes arose between species, they often asked for human mediators. Humanity had proven they could be tough when necessary, but preferred peaceful solutions. The human military remained powerful. Ships were maintained. Weapons were updated. Training continued. But the military's primary role was peacekeeping and disaster relief. Captain Yuna, now an admiral herself, commanded the fleet. She was old now, in her 70s, but still sharp, still capable. She stood on the bridge of her flagship watching her fleet conduct exercises. Ships from a dozen species participated, a joint force, working together, training together. Admiral, we're receiving a distress call. The Kalani system is under attack by pirates. Set course, maximum speed. Contact the other ships. Tell them we're responding. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed. Within hours, they arrived at the Kalani system. The pirates, seeing the combined fleet, fled immediately. No shots were fired. The mere presence of the fleet was enough. After securing the system, the Kalani ambassador thanked Yuna personally. You saved us. We're grateful. That's what allies do, Yuna said. We help each other. I've heard stories about the old war, about what humanity did to the Velkarn. I admit I was nervous about asking for your help. Because you feared we'd be too violent? Yes, Yuna smiled. We learned from that war. We learned that overwhelming force should be a last resort, not a first option. We're not the same species we were 50 years ago. We've grown, changed. For the better? I hope so. History will judge. Commander Jiho had retired decades ago but still worked in reconstruction. Now he supervised projects in former war zones, helping communities rebuild, teaching new generations about construction and cooperation. One day, a young human approached him at a work site. Sir, my teacher said you fought in the Velkarn War, is that true? Yes, I was in special operations. Did things I'm not proud of? Like what? Jiho was quiet for a moment. I killed people, destroyed facilities, conducted raids deep in enemy territory. I did what soldiers do in war. Do you regret it? Every day. But I don't regret fighting. Someone had to stop what the Velkarn were doing. I just wish it could have been stopped without so much death. My grandfather died at New Busan. I never got to meet him. I'm sorry. That was before I was involved. But I understand your loss. We all lost someone in that war. The young man was quiet for a moment. Do you think it could happen again? Another war like that? It could. If we forget the lessons. If we let pride override sense. If we stop talking and start fighting. That's why we remember. That's why we teach history. The news of Velcros spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species with the technology to observe the Velkarn homeworld watched as it died. They saw the artificial sun. They saw the temperatures rise. They saw an entire planet become uninhabitable. And they learned what humanity was capable of when pushed too far. The remaining Velkarn colonies surrendered immediately. There was no defiance left, no pride. Just fear and the desperate hope that surrender might save them from sharing Velcros' fate. Admiral Minji accepted their surrenders. The terms were harsh but not impossible. Complete disarmament, war crimes trials for those responsible, human oversight of Velkarn governments, reparations for the damage they had caused. The Velkarn agreed to everything. They had no choice. The war was over. Humanity had won. But the victory felt hollow. Captain Hyun sat alone in his quarters aboard the Retribution. The ship was heading back to Earth. The crew was celebrating. They had survived. They had won, but Hyun couldn't celebrate. He kept seeing Velcros burning, kept thinking about the billions who died there. Yes, their government had started the war. Yes, they had refused every chance for peace. But did that justify genocide? Yuna found him sitting in the dark. Captain, you should come to the celebration. I don't feel like celebrating. Yuna sat down beside him. None of us do. Not really. But we're alive. Our families are safe. That's worth something, is it? We killed a planet, Yuna, 3 billion people. Most of them had nothing to do with the war. They were just civilians living their lives. They had a chance to evacuate. We gave them warning. Not everyone could leave. Not everyone believed we'd really do it. Hyun looked at his hands. I followed orders. Did my duty. But I'll never forget what we did. Good, Yuna said. The day we forget is the day we become like them. We carry this burden. We remember, and we make sure it never happens again. Hyun nodded slowly. You're right. But it still hurts. It should hurt. If it didn't, we'd be monsters. They sat in silence for a while. Outside the window, stars passed by as the ship traveled through space. The same stars that had watched Velcros die, on Earth. Dr. Sarah was called before a government committee to answer questions about Project Daybreak. Dr. Lim, can you explain the decision to use such a devastating weapon? Sarah looked at the committee members. Politicians who had authorized the weapon but now wanted to distance themselves from it. You authorized it. You knew what it would do. Don't pretend you didn't. We authorized its development as a deterrent. We didn't necessarily intend for it to be used. Then you don't understand deterrence, Sarah said coldly. A weapon you're not willing to use isn't a deterrent. It's a bluff. And the Velkarn called that bluff. We either used the weapon or admitted we were too weak to use it. So you take responsibility for those deaths? Yes, I built the weapon. I activated it. Those deaths are on my hands, and I'll carry that weight for the rest of my life. Sarah stood up, but I'd do it again if I had to, because the alternative was letting the Velkarn continue, letting them attack other species, showing the galaxy that humanity could be victimized with impunity. You sound like you're trying to justify genocide. I'm not justifying anything. I'm explaining reality. War is ugly. Total war is uglier. We didn't start this. We tried peace. But when peace failed, we had to win completely. Because partial victory just means the war starts again later. The committee dismissed her. She walked out knowing they would write their reports blaming her, saying she acted without proper authorization or went too far. Politicians always needed someone to blame. She didn't care. She knew the truth. They all did. Project Daybreak had been necessary. Evil, but necessary. Commander Jiho focused on reconstruction efforts. The human colonies that had been attacked needed to be rebuilt. The prisoners who had been freed needed medical care and counseling. He spent his days overseeing construction projects and his nights visiting hospitals where the freed prisoners were recovering. One evening, he sat with a woman who had been held in a Velkarn labor camp for 6 months. How are you doing? He asked. I'm alive. That's more than I expected. She looked at him. Did we really destroy their homeworld? Yes. Good. Jiho was surprised by the venom in her voice. You wanted that? You didn't see what they did to us. The torture. The experiments. They treated us like animals. Less than animals. So yes, I'm glad their world burned. I hope they felt a fraction of the pain they caused us. Jiho didn't know what to say. He had thought the destruction of Velcros was tragic but necessary. This woman saw it as justice. Maybe both views were true. What will you do now? He asked. Live, heal, try to forget. Though I never really will. She looked at him. Thank you. For getting us out. For making them pay. I was just doing my job. No. You saved us. All of you. And I'll never forget that. Jiho left the hospital thinking about justice and revenge and the thin line between them. Ambassador Norith, one of the few high-ranking Velkarn to survive the war, worked with human administrators to establish order in the former Dominion territories. She had opposed the war from the beginning. Had tried to warn her superiors that attacking humanity was a mistake. They hadn't listened. Now she was left to pick up the pieces. She met with Minji to discuss the occupation terms. How long will your forces remain in our territories? Norith asked. As long as necessary, until we're satisfied that the Velkarn won't pose a threat again. That could be generations. Then it's generations. Minji's voice was cold. You attacked us without provocation. You tortured our people. You refused every chance for peace. Now you live under our rules until we decide you can be trusted again. Norith nodded. I understand. I hope someday we can move past this. That our species can coexist peacefully. Maybe. If your people learn from this. If they truly change. But that's going to take time. A lot of time. After Norith left, Minji sat alone in her office. She had won the war. Crushed the enemy completely. But she felt empty inside. Her family was still dead. New Busan Station was still destroyed. All the victories in the galaxy couldn't bring them back. She pulled out the old photo she kept in her desk. Her husband. Her daughter. Both smiling. Both gone. I did what I had to do, she whispered to the photo. I protected our people. Made sure no one else lost their family like I lost mine. But the photo didn't answer. It never did. She put it away and went back to work. There were still reports to file. Treaties to negotiate. A galaxy to manage. The personal cost didn't matter. The job had to be done. Across human space, memorials were built. For New Busan Station, for Harmony Colony, for all the places the Velkarn had attacked, for all the soldiers who had died in the fighting. The largest memorial was at New Busan's former location, a massive structure of crystal and metal, floating in space where the station used to be. On its surface were carved the names of all 50,000 people who had died in the attack. The dedication ceremony was attended by thousands. Families of the victims, survivors, government officials, military personnel. People from across human space came to remember. Minji gave a speech at the ceremony. She talked about sacrifice and duty and never forgetting. But inside, she was just a woman standing near where her family had died, wishing she could have saved them. After the ceremony, many people approached her, thanking her, calling her a hero, saying she had saved humanity. She accepted their thanks politely but didn't feel like a hero. Heroes didn't burn planets. Heroes didn't kill billions, but she had done what needed to be done. That would have to be enough. Lieutenant Yuna was promoted to commander and given her own ship. She was young for such a position, but she had proven herself in the war. Her new ship was called the New Beginning. It was a symbol of humanity moving forward, learning from the past but not being trapped by it. On her first day as captain, she addressed her crew. We fought a terrible war. We did things we're not proud of, but we did them to protect our people. Now we have a new mission. Peace. Rebuilding. Making sure what happened to Velcros never has to happen again. She looked around at her crew. Young faces, old faces, veterans and new recruits. We carry the weight of what we did. We remember, but we don't let it destroy us. We use it, we learn from it. We become better. The crew listened in silence. They understood. They had all seen the same things. Done the same things. Now they had to find a way to live with it. Other species in the galaxy watched humanity carefully. Some with fear. Some with respect. All with caution. The humans had shown they could be peaceful. But they had also shown they could be terrifying when threatened. A council of galactic powers held a meeting to discuss the human question. Should we be concerned about their military power? One representative asked. Concerned? They destroyed an entire planet, They should terrify us, another replied. But they only attacked after being provoked. They tried diplomacy first. This time, what about next time? What if they decide we're a threat? The debate went on for hours. Eventually, they reached a consensus. The humans should be treated with respect and caution. Don't provoke them. Don't threaten them. But also don't appear weak. Show strength through cooperation, not confrontation. An ambassador from a species called the Thalax summed it up best. The humans are peaceful by choice, not by nature. That makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Maybe 6 months. Maybe less if they move faster than expected. Then we have time to prepare. Fortify that the human fleet moved deeper into Velkarn territory like a knife cutting through flesh. Every system they entered, they left destruction behind. Not random destruction. Calculated, precise elimination of military capability. Captain Hyun stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching another Velkarn base burn. His crew worked efficiently without celebration. This wasn't victory. This was work that needed to be done. Target destroyed, Yuna reported from her station. No survivors. Move to the next objective, Hyun ordered. The Retribution and its escort ships jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, debris floated where a Velkarn supply depot had stood just hours before. Across the fleet, the pattern repeated. Human ships appeared, destroyed their targets, and vanished before Velkarn reinforcements could arrive. It was systematic, relentless, unstoppable. The Velkarn tried everything. They set traps. They used decoys. They tried to predict where the humans would strike next. Nothing worked. The humans seemed to know every move the Velkarn made before they made it. What the Velkarn didn't know was that Commander Jiho's teams had infiltrated their military networks months ago. Every order, every movement, every plan was being monitored by human intelligence. The Velkarn were fighting blind while the humans could see everything. War Master Krell stood in his command center, staring at the tactical map. Red symbols marked destroyed Velkarn facilities. There were dozens of them. Soon there would be hundreds. We can't keep losing like this, an officer said. We need to do something different. Like what? Krell asked tiredly. Everything we try fails. The humans are always one step ahead. Maybe we should... Don't say negotiate, Krell interrupted. The Archon won't hear it. I've tried. He still believes we can win this, can we? Krell looked at the map again. At all those red symbols. At the reports of human ships appearing and disappearing like ghosts. At the casualty numbers that grew every day. No, he said quietly. We can't. But we'll fight anyway because that's what soldiers do. We follow orders until there's no one left to give them. The Velkarn made one more attempt at a major offensive. They gathered every available ship from 3 sectors and launched a coordinated attack on a human-held system. The attack failed before it even began. As the Velkarn fleet moved into position, human ships appeared behind them. Not in front where the Velkarn expected them. Behind. The humans had let the Velkarn pass, then attacked from the rear. The Velkarn fleet panicked. They tried to turn around to face the threat, but space battles don't work like that. Ships can't just turn on a point. By the time the Velkarn reorganized, half their fleet was already destroyed. The survivors scattered, running for their lives. Hyun watched them go. Should we pursue, sir? Yuna asked. No, let them run. Let them go back and tell their people what happened here. Fear's a weapon too. And the fear spread. Velkarn soldiers started deserting. Entire crews abandoned their ships. Colonies surrendered without firing a shot when human vessels appeared in orbit. The Velkarn dominion was crumbling. But the human advance didn't slow. If anything, it accelerated. Admiral Minji had given clear orders. Continue until the Velkarn couldn't fight anymore. Until every military installation was destroyed. Until surrender was the only option left. Commander Jiho's teams conducted raids deep behind Velkarn lines. They freed human prisoners from labor camps. What they found in those camps was horrific. Jiho stood in one such camp after his team had secured it. The freed prisoners were in terrible condition. Starving, beaten, broken. Some couldn't even speak anymore. A young Velkarn guard, captured during the raid, watched as the prisoners were loaded onto medical transports. We were just following orders, the guard said. Jiho looked at him. That's what they all say. Doesn't make it right. What will happen to me? You'll be tried for war crimes. If you're lucky, You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. If you're not lucky. Jiho didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The guard started crying. Jiho felt nothing. He had seen too much, done too much. Whatever sympathy he once had for the enemy had died in camps like this one. Back on Earth, Dr. Sarah worked on the final preparations for Project Daybreak. The weapon was nearly ready. She hoped they wouldn't need it. That the conventional military campaign would force a surrender. But she knew better. Supreme Archon Thelvis was too proud to surrender. He would fight to the end, no matter how many of his people died. So she prepared the weapon. Because when the time came, someone would have to use it, and it would be her responsibility. Late one night, one of her assistants found her sitting alone in the lab. "Dr. Lim, are you okay?" Sarah looked at the weapon specifications on her screen. "Do you know what this will do? It will kill billions, turn a planet into an oven. Everyone there will die slowly, knowing they can't escape. Then why are we building it? Because if we don't, the Velkarn will keep fighting, keep killing, and eventually they might find a way to win, or at least hurt us badly enough that other species see us as weak. This weapon ensures that never happens. It sends a message that can't be misunderstood." "What message?" "Don't push humanity this far." The assistant was quiet for a moment. "Will we use it?" "I hope not," Sarah said. "But if we have to, we will. And I'll carry that weight for the rest of my life." The human fleet reached the outer defenses of Velkros, the Velkarn homeworld, the heart of their empire. The Velkarn had fortified it with everything they had left. Thousands of defense platforms, minefields, weapons satellites, millions of soldiers on the surface. This was their last stand. Hyun looked at the tactical display showing all those defenses. "They're going to make us fight for every inch." "Should we proceed with the assault?" Yuna asked. "No, not yet. Send a message to Admiral Kang. Tell her we're in position." "Ask for orders." The message was sent. Hours later, the reply came back. "Admiral Kang is coming here personally. She wants to offer terms one more time before we proceed." Hyun was surprised. After months of total war, Minji still wanted to try for a surrender? He didn't understand, but he followed orders. 3 days later, Admiral Minji Kang's flagship arrived at Velkros. She broadcast a message directly to Supreme Archon Thelvis. "This is your last chance. Surrender now. Hand over those responsible for war crimes. Accept human oversight of your government. Your people will be treated fairly under the laws of war." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "If you refuse, I will use Project Daybreak. I will turn Velkros into a dead world. You have 1 hour to respond." The broadcast ended. Across Velkros, civilians watched in terror. Surely their government would surrender. Surely they wouldn't let the entire planet die. In his palace, Thelvas watched the message with his advisors. They argued frantically about what to do. "We have to surrender," one said. "We can't let them destroy the homeworld. If we surrender, we lose everything," another argued. Krell stood in the corner, saying nothing. He had said everything he could say. Now he just waited to see if pride or survival would win. Thelvas looked at the clock. 50 minutes left. Then 40. Then 30. He thought about his empire. Centuries of power and glory. 12 species conquered. The Velkarn Dominion had been unstoppable. Until now. The clock showed 15 minutes remaining. "Send them our answer," Thelvas said. "What is it, my lord?" Thelvas stood tall. "We do not surrender. We are Velkarn. We fight." Krell closed his eyes. The fool had doomed them all. The message was transmitted to the human fleet. Minji received it in silence. She had hoped Thelvas would see reason, but she had prepared for this outcome. "Dr. Lim, activate Project Daybreak." Far away on a secure facility, Sarah received the order. Her hands shook as she entered the activation codes. "Weapon activated. Deploying in 5 minutes." Minji looked at Hyun on the video screen. "Captain, give the evacuation order. Anyone who wants to flee Velkros has permission to leave. Don't fire on civilian ships." "Understood," Hyun said. The order was broadcast across Velkros. Civilian ships began launching immediately. Thousands of them, packed with people who believed the human threat. But millions stayed behind. Some didn't believe the humans would really do it. Some couldn't reach the spaceports. Some chose to stay with their homeworld. The weapon platforms moved into position above Velkros. Krell watched them from his command center. He knew what they were. He knew what was coming. He pulled out his sidearm and walked to Thelvas's throne room. The guards let him through. They knew it was over. Thelva sat on his throne, watching the platforms on his screen. You killed us all, Krill said. Your pride, your refusal to accept reality. You killed us. We are Velkarn, Thelva said. We do not kneel, then we die standing, Krill said. He raised his weapon. The shot echoed through the palace. Above Velkros, Project Daybreak activated. A point of light appeared in the sky. It grew brighter, brighter. Within minutes it looked like a second sun, but this sun was close. Too close. The temperature began to rise. On the Retribution, Hyun watched the displays. The temperature climbed steadily. 10 degrees 2050. Sir, we're receiving surrender transmissions from Velkros, Yuna said. Multiple sources. They're begging us to stop. Hyun looked at Minji on the screen. Admiral? Too late, Minji said quietly. They had their chance. They made their choice, the temperature K. The Velkarn base at Kalos Prime was massive. Thousands of ships, weapons platforms everywhere, shields that could stop anything. It was supposed to be unbreakable. The Velkarn soldiers stationed there felt safe. They had conquered 12 species. None had ever seriously threatened them. These humans would be no different. Then the sensors started screaming. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The Velkarn counted the ships and laughed. A few hundred vessels against their thousands. The humans were fools. All ships prepare to engage, the Velkarn base commander ordered. Let's finish this quickly. The human fleet didn't charge in like the Velkarn expected. Instead, they spread out in a wide formation and stopped. Just waited there, sitting still in space. The Velkarn commander was confused. What are they doing? On the Retribution's bridge, Hyun watched the Velkarn fleet begin to move toward them. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. They're coming to us, good. Yuna, are the targeting solutions ready? Yes, sir. All ships have locked on. Then let's show them what we built. Hyun took a breath. Fire. The human ships unleashed weapons the Velkarn had never seen before. Relativistic kinetic missiles shot forward at 90% the speed of light. When they hit Velkarn ships, the impact released energy equal to nuclear bombs. Ships didn't just explode. They vaporized. The Velkarn shields, designed to stop energy weapons and slower missiles, were useless. The kinetic weapons punched through like they weren't even there. In the first 30 seconds, 100 Velkarn ships simply ceased to exist. What's happening? The Velkarn commander screamed. Return fire. The Velkarn ships fired their plasma cannons and missile banks. The human ship's shields absorbed most of it. What got through hit armor that was designed specifically to withstand Velkarn weapons. The humans had studied every battle the Velkarn had ever fought and built defenses accordingly. The Velkarn were fighting an enemy that knew all their tactics and had prepared for every strategy. Launch the fighters, the commander ordered. Thousands of small Velkarn fighters swarmed toward the human fleet. That's when the humans revealed their second surprise. Autonomous hunter-killer drones launched from the human ships. Small, fast, and smart. Each drone could think for itself, coordinating with others to hunt targets. The Velkarn fighters found themselves outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Drones came at them from every direction, firing precision lasers that cut through cockpits and engines. The fighter attack became a slaughter. On the Retribution, Yuna watched her tactical display. The red dots representing Velkarn ships were disappearing fast. Too fast. She had expected a tough fight. This was more like an execution. Sir, the Velkarn are trying to retreat, she reported. Don't let them, Hyun said coldly. No survivors. No one gets away to report what happened here. The human fleet broke formation and pursued. Ships that tried to run were hit by long-range missiles. Ships that tried to hide were found by sensor drones and destroyed. Ships that tried to surrender were ignored. In 2 hours it was over. The Velkarn base at Kalos Prime was debris. Every ship destroyed. Every platform wrecked. Thousands of Velkarn were dead. The human fleet had lost 3 ships. While the battle raged at Kalos Prime, Commander Jiho and his team were elsewhere. They had a different mission. The Velkarn Military Command Center at Threshold Station controlled communications for 2 entire sectors. Jiho's job was to take it offline. His team of 50 soldiers approached in a captured Velkarn transport ship. The station's automated systems recognized the ship's codes and let them dock. No questions asked. The team moved through the station's corridors silently. They had studied the layout for months. They knew where every guard post was, where every security camera pointed, where every critical system was located. They reached the communications hub without being detected. That's where the quiet part ended. Charges set, one of Jiho's soldiers whispered. Ready to upload the virus. Do it, Jiho ordered. The soldier plugged a device into the station's main computer. Code began flowing into the Velkarn military network. It was elegant and vicious. It would spread through every connected system, corrupting data and shutting down communications. That's when the alarms went off. They found us, Jiho said calmly. Everyone to the extraction point, move! His team ran through the station. Behind them, Velkarn soldiers appeared, firing weapons. Jiho's people fired back, dropping Velkarn with precise shots. They had trained for this, no panic, no hesitation. They reached the docking bay where their ship waited. Half the team was through the airlock when a Velkarn officer appeared with a heavy weapon. Go, Jiho shouted. Get the ship clear. 2 of his soldiers stayed with him, providing covering fire while the rest escaped. The Velkarn officer fired and the blast killed 1 soldier instantly. Jiho and the remaining soldier returned fire, hitting the Velkarn multiple times. More Velkarn appeared. Too many, sir, we have to go, the soldier said. Jiho threw a grenade and they ran. They made it through the airlock just as the ship was pulling away. Behind them, the docking bay exploded. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. Jiho looked back at the station, growing smaller in the distance. They had lost 3 people, but the mission was complete. Across 2 sectors, Velkarn military communications went dark. War Master Krell was in his command ship when the reports started coming in. At first, it was just Kalos Prime going silent. That was concerning but not alarming. Maybe their communications were damaged. Then Threshold Station reported an attack and went offline. Then reports came in from patrol fleets that had encountered human ships. Small engagements. The humans won every single one. Krell pulled up what little data they had. The numbers didn't make sense. Human ships were faster than they should be, stronger, more advanced. How had they improved so quickly? He called an emergency meeting with his top officers. The humans are more dangerous than we thought, he told them. We need to reassess our strategy. They're just primitives who got lucky, one officer said. We still outnumber them 10 to 1. Numbers don't matter if we can't hit them, Krell snapped. And we can't, their ships are too fast. Their weapons too powerful. We're fighting blind because they've destroyed our communications network. What do you suggest? Krell was quiet for a moment. I suggest we negotiate. Offer them terms. Stop this before it gets worse. The officer stared at him like he was crazy. The Velkarn Dominion doesn't negotiate. We conquer. Then we're going to die, Krell said simply. He took his concerns to Supreme Archon Thelvis. The Archon listened to his report, then laughed. You're afraid of these humans? They won a few small battles. That means nothing. We will crush them with overwhelming numbers. They're not fighting like any species we've faced before, Krell insisted. They're not trying to defend territory or protect resources. They're hunting us. Every engagement is designed to kill as many of us as possible and then disappear before we can respond. Then we'll adapt. Send orders to all fleets, find the human worlds and attack them directly. Let's see how brave these humans are when their homes are burning. Krell wanted to argue more, but he could see it was useless. Thelvis's pride wouldn't let him admit he had made a mistake. The Velkarn gathered a massive fleet, 5,000 ships, the largest military force they had ever assembled. They would sweep through human space and end this war in one decisive campaign. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading toward the nearest human colony world. They never arrived. The human fleet was waiting for them at the perfect ambush point. As the Velkarn ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, they found themselves surrounded. The battle was short and brutal. The Velkarn fleet was designed for overwhelming frontal assaults. They weren't prepared for an enemy that surrounded them and attacked from all sides simultaneously. Human ships used hit-and-run tactics. Jump in, fire, jump out. The Velkarn couldn't coordinate their response. Their communications were still damaged from Jiho's virus. Their commanders couldn't talk to each other effectively. When it was over, half the Velkarn fleet was destroyed. The rest retreated in chaos. Minji watched the battle from her command center on Earth. The tactical displays showed the Velkarn retreat. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, just cold certainty that this had to continue until the Velkarn couldn't fight anymore. Send a message to their Supreme Archon, she ordered. Tell him we're coming for him next. The message was delivered. Thelvis received it in his palace on the Velkarn homeworld of Velkros. He was furious. How dare these primitives threaten him? But for the first time, there was something else mixed with his anger. Fear. He looked at the casualty reports. In 3 months of fighting, the Velkarn had lost more ships than they had in the last 100 years of conquest. Human tactics were devastating. Every time the Velkarn thought they understood how humans fought, the humans changed their approach. Krell entered the throne room. "My lord, we need to discuss terms of surrender." "We do not surrender," Thelvis roared. "Then we need to discuss evacuation," Krell said quietly, "because they're coming here. The Velkros, and I don't think we can stop them." Thelvis wanted to dismiss him again, but he couldn't. The reports were clear. The humans weren't just winning. They were dominating. "How long do we have?" Thelvis asked. The stars above New Busan Station shone peacefully that morning. Minji Kang sat in her small apartment, watching her daughter draw pictures of spaceships. Her husband was working in the research lab, studying new ways to grow food in space. Life was simple and good. Then the alarm started screaming. Minji ran to the window and saw them. Massive ships, dark and angular, dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They didn't send messages. They didn't ask questions. They just started firing. The first beam cut through the station's outer ring. Minji grabbed her daughter and ran toward the escape pods. Behind her, walls exploded. Air rushed out into space. People were screaming, running, dying. She reached the pod bay. Her daughter was crying. Minji pushed her inside a pod and turned to go back for her husband. That's when the second beam hit. The entire section where the research lab stood simply vanished. Turned into fire and debris, Minji stood frozen, staring at nothing. Her daughter screamed from inside the pod. The station was breaking apart. She had seconds to decide. She climbed into the pod and hit the launch button. As they shot away from the dying station, Minji watched through the small window. The alien ships fired again and again. New Busan Station, home to 50,000 people, exploded into a massive fireball. Then it was just debris floating in the dark. Her daughter asked where Daddy was. Minji couldn't answer. She just held her close and cried. The aliens who destroyed New Busan called themselves the Velkarn Dominion. They had conquered 12 other species across the galaxy. They saw humans as weak. Humans talked too much. Humans tried to negotiate everything. Humans seemed afraid to fight. The Velkarn Supreme Archon Thelva sent a message to Earth. His face appeared on every screen across human space. He spoke slowly, like talking to children. "You are now part of the Velkarn Dominion. You will obey our laws. You will give us your resources. You will serve us. If you refuse, more of your stations will burn." The United Earth government held emergency meetings. Diplomats argued about how to respond. Many wanted to try talking. War would cost millions of lives. Surely there was a peaceful solution. Admiral Minji Kang, rescued from her escape pod 3 days after the attack, sat in those meetings. She listened to the diplomats talk about compromise and negotiation. She said nothing. Her hands were clenched so tight her nails drew blood. Captain Hyun Park, commander of the warship Retribution, also attended the meetings. He had spent 20 years in the military, mostly doing peacekeeping missions. He believed in protecting people through strength, but he also believed in giving peace a chance. "We should try to talk to them," Hyun said. "Maybe they'll listen if we show we're willing to defend ourselves but prefer peace." Minji finally spoke. Her voice was quiet and cold. "They killed my family. They killed 50,000 people without warning. They're not interested in talking. We have to try," a diplomat insisted. War should always be the last option. The vote passed. Earth would attempt diplomatic contact. Ambassador Noreth, a Velkarn diplomat, arrived on Earth 2 weeks later. She was tall and covered in silver scales. Her eyes were completely black. She moved like she owned the room. The meeting was broadcast across human space. People watched as Earth's leaders offered terms, shared resources, trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, anything to avoid more death. Noreth listened with what looked like amusement. When they finished, she laughed. "You think you can negotiate with us? You're primitives who just learned to leave your planet. We've conquered civilizations 1,000 years older than yours. You have 2 choices. Submit or burn." The broadcast ended. Across human space, people were angry, but the government still hesitated. War meant death. War meant destruction. They needed more time. The Velkarn didn't give them time. 3 weeks later, they attacked Harmony Colony. This time, they didn't destroy everything. They took prisoners. 5,000 humans were captured and transported to Velkarn ships. Hyun watched the attack from his ship. His orders were clear: observe and report. Don't engage. He followed orders, but it burned inside him. He watched Velkarn soldiers drag screaming people onto transport ships and did nothing. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing their faces. Then the videos appeared. Someone in Velkarn space leaked footage. It showed human prisoners in cages. It showed them being beaten, tortured, used for experiments. Some were forced to fight each other while Velkarn soldiers watched and laughed. Lieutenant Yuna Choi, a young tactical officer on the Retribution, was the one who found the videos first. She was doing routine intelligence work when the encrypted files appeared. She opened them, watched for 30 seconds, and threw up. She brought them to Hyun. He watched all of them. Every horrible minute. When they ended, he sat in silence for a long time. "Send these to Earth. Send them to everyone," he finally said. The videos spread across human space within hours. People watched them. They saw what the Velkarn really were. They saw what submission meant. The anger was instant and universal. Protests erupted on every human world. People demanded action. The government couldn't ignore it anymore. The United Earth government called another vote. This time it wasn't about whether to fight. It was about how total the war would be. Minji stood before the council. She had been promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's military forces. Her first request was simple and terrifying. "I want authorization for Project Daybreak," she said. The council members looked at each other. Project Daybreak was a weapons program that had been proposed years ago and immediately rejected. It was too powerful, too destructive, too cruel. "That weapon could kill billions," a council member said. Minji pulled up images on the screen. New Busan Station burning, human prisoners being tortured, children in cages. They started this. They chose this. Now we finish it. Her voice never rose above a whisper, but everyone heard the steel in it. The vote passed. Across human space, the mobilization began. Factories that made civilian ships started making warships. Scientists who studied peaceful technologies started designing weapons. Soldiers who had never expected to fight prepared for war. Dr. Sarah Lim led the weapons research team. She was a physicist who had spent her career trying to develop clean energy. Now she was building bombs that could crack planets. She worked 18-hour days. Her team asked if she was okay. She showed them pictures of the prisoners. "We're not building these weapons because we want to. We're building them because we have to." Commander Ji Ho-nam trained the Special Operations Forces. He was picking soldiers for missions that would require them to go deep into enemy territory. "Many wouldn't come back. Why are we doing this?" a young soldier asked during training. Ji-ho was quiet for a moment. "Because if we don't, they'll do to Earth what they did to New Busan. They'll do it to every human world. We fight now, or we die slowly in cages." The soldier nodded and went back to training. 6 months after New Busan burned, the Velkarn sent another message. Thelvis appeared on screens again, still confident and smug. "You've had time to think. Submit now and we'll be merciful. Resist, and we'll turn all your worlds into ash." This time humanity answered. Minji's face appeared on every Velkarn screen they could hack into. She looked tired, but her eyes were hard as diamonds. "You destroyed our station without warning. You tortured our people. You thought we would beg for mercy?" She paused. "You were wrong. We tried peace. You chose war. Now you'll learn what humans are really capable of. We're coming for you. All of you." The message ended. Across Velkarn space, War Master Krell watched the transmission. He was the Velkarn's chief military strategist. Something about the humans' eyes bothered him. He had seen that look before, in the eyes of prey animals that decided to fight back. He pulled up intelligence reports on human military capacity. What he saw confused him. Humans were building ships at an impossible rate. Their weapons technology had jumped forward decades in just months. They were mobilizing their entire civilization. "We should be careful," Krell told Thelvis. "They're not acting like a species that's preparing to surrender." Thelvis laughed. "They're primitives. Let them build their toys. When they come, we'll crush them like we've crushed everyone else." Krell wasn't so sure. But he was a soldier. He followed orders. The human fleet gathered in secret far from any known Velkarn position. Hundreds of ships, all brand new, all built for one purpose: destruction. Hyun stood on the bridge of the Retribution and looked at the fleet around him. Each ship was named after a place the Velkarn had destroyed or attacked. New Busan, Harmony, Hope Station, Liberty Colony. Each name was a reminder. Each name was a promise. All ships report ready, Yuna said from her tactical station. Hyun nodded. Then let's go teach them about consequences. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading toward Velkarn space. The war had begun.